Every night as the body relaxes and the mind drifts towards sleep, an extraordinary opportunity presents itself. Sleep is not merely a time of rest. It is the moment when the conscious mind releases its grip, allowing the subconscious to become fully receptive. In this drowsy state between wakefulness and sleep, the mind is at its most impressionable, open to receiving the impressions that will shape the days to come. What you take into this state, whether fear or faith, doubt or certainty, will be accepted as truth, and from that truth your world will be formed. It is a great misunderstanding to believe that external effort is the primary force in shaping reality. The visible world is but a reflection, a shadow cast by the thoughts, beliefs, and assumptions held within. The subconscious mind does not argue, does not reason, does not distinguish between what is real and what is imagined. It accepts as fact whatever is impressed upon it with feeling and conviction. And the most powerful moment for impressing an idea upon the subconscious is in those final moments before sleep, when the outer world fades and only the inner world remains. Most people, unaware of this great truth, take into sleep the burdens of the day. They replay conversations, dwell on worries, relive past failures, and anticipate future difficulties. Without realizing it, they are planting seeds of struggle, reinforcing the very conditions they wish to escape. They drift into unconsciousness with a mind saturated in limitation, and upon waking, they find the same conditions greeting them again. For the subconscious has faithfully reproduced what was last impressed upon it. But for the one who understands the power of assumption, sleep becomes a sacred moment, a time of deliberate creation. The wise do not allow themselves to drift into sleep as beggars, pleading with the universe. They do not carry fear, nor do they surrender to doubt. Instead, they assume the feeling of their wish fulfilled. They construct within their imagination a scene that implies their desire has already been realized. And they immerse themselves in it as though it were real. They feel the joy, the satisfaction, the certainty. And then, with this assumption deeply embedded in their being, they surrender to sleep, knowing that what has been impressed upon the mind must take root and express itself in the physical world. This is not idle fantasy. It is not a game of make-believe. It is the fundamental process through which all things are created. The subconscious mind governs all functions of life, orchestrating the infinite details that bring about the circumstances of existence. It is through this mind that the unseen becomes seen, the imagined becomes tangible, and it is most impressionable in the moments before sleep, when the barriers of logic and skepticism are lowered, allowing ideas to take hold and flourish. To practice this is to take control of the unseen forces that shape reality. Each night, before surrendering to sleep, take a moment to withdraw from the day's events. Let go of the struggles, the disappointments, the anxieties. These have no place in the creation of a new reality. Instead, turn inward and construct the scene of your fulfilled desire. Do not look at yourself as one who wishes. See yourself as one who already possesses. If your desire is for wealth, do not dwell on lack. Feel the abundance as though it were already yours. If you seek love, do not entertain loneliness. Instead, experience the warmth and companionship in your imagination. If health is your goal, do not focus on illness. Feel the vitality coursing through your being. This must not be done with mere thought alone. It must be accompanied by feeling. The subconscious mind responds not to empty words, but to the emotions behind them. It is the feeling that impresses the idea upon the deeper mind. A thought entertained without feeling is weak and ineffective, but a thought wrapped in conviction, in certainty, in emotion, is powerful beyond measure. There is no need to concern yourself with how the desire will manifest. The means are not your responsibility. The universe is infinite in its intelligence, boundless in its ability to bring about that which has been firmly assumed. The path to its fulfillment is beyond the grasp of the conscious mind. Your only task is to assume the state of the wish fulfilled and to persist in that assumption, especially in the moments before sleep, when the mind is most receptive. To test this is to prove its truth. Tonight, as you lie in bed, resist the urge to replay the struggles of the day. Resist the temptation to indulge in thoughts of doubt. Instead, close your eyes and deliberately assume the feeling of your fulfilled desire. Construct the scene that implies its reality. Engage every sense. See it, hear it, touch it, feel the joy, the relief, the certainty. Lose yourself in this reality until it becomes more real than the waking world. Then, as sleep takes over, let go with the absolute confidence that the impression has been made, that the seed has been planted, and that in time it must bear fruit. For as surely as night turns into day, as surely as the sun rises and the seasons change, what is planted in the depths of the mind must express itself in the world of form. The subconscious mind does not fail, it does not waver, it does not question. It simply accepts and expresses that which has been impressed upon it with conviction. Each night you stand before the doorway to creation. You hold within you the power to shape your reality, not through force, not through struggle, but through the simple yet profound act of assumption. What you take into sleep, you give to the infinite mind, and what is given to the infinite mind must return to you in kind. Assume wisely, assume deliberately, and you will come to know that you are, in every sense, the master of your own reality. There is a moment in every night when the physical world dissolves, when the senses grow quiet, and the conscious mind surrenders to the infinite. In this sacred transition where wakefulness fades and sleep takes hold, a power beyond measure is at work. It is in this moment that the subconscious mind, the architect of reality, is most impressionable. And what is impressed upon it in these final moments before sleep must, with absolute certainty, manifest in the days to come. Throughout the day, the conscious mind engages with the external world, reacting to circumstances, influenced by appearances, bound by reason. It is swayed by the evidence of the senses, limited by logic, and confined by past experiences. But as night falls and sleep approaches, the conscious mind begins to fade, and with it all the limitations it imposes. The critical faculty, which questions, doubts, and argues against possibilities, weakens, and in its place the subconscious mind emerges, pure, receptive, unfiltered. It does not question, it does not analyze, it accepts. Most people go to sleep carrying the burdens of the day. They take with them their failures, their disappointments, their worries. They allow their final moments of consciousness to be filled with thoughts of lack, limitation, and struggle. They replay the painful events of the day. They anticipate the hardships of tomorrow, and without realizing it, they give these thoughts as instructions to the subconscious mind. And so upon waking, they find their circumstances unchanged, their struggles persistent, their dreams distant. For the subconscious, ever faithful, simply reflects back what has been impressed upon it. But for the one who understands this great law, the moments before sleep become a time of deliberate creation. They do not surrender to sleep passively, allowing the mind to wander aimlessly. They do not allow negative impressions to take root. Instead, they take conscious control of these final moments, directing the mind with precision, impressing upon the subconscious the reality they wish to experience. They do not ask, they do not wish, they assume. They assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, the certainty of the desire realized. They enter into the scene of their success not as an observer, but as a participant. This is the secret. It is not enough to simply think about what is desired. Thought alone without feeling is weak, powerless. The subconscious mind is moved only by conviction, by deep, sustained feeling. And so, in those final moments before sleep, one must not simply think about the desire, they must feel it as though it were real. They must step into the scene with all their senses engaged, experiencing the fulfillment of their wish as though it were happening now. The joy, the relief, the excitement. These emotions must saturate the mind, for it is through feeling that the subconscious is impressed. There is no need to concern oneself with the means by which the desire will be fulfilled. The conscious mind, limited in its understanding, may struggle to see how such a thing is possible. But the subconscious mind does not operate by the rules of logic. It is not bound by the constraints of the physical world. It knows only fulfillment, and it will arrange the circumstances, the events, the people, in ways beyond comprehension to bring about that which has been assumed. The how is not the concern of the one who understands this law. The only concern is the assumption of the fulfilled desire impressed upon the subconscious in the moments before sleep. If doubt arises, it must be dismissed, for doubt is the destroyer of creation. The subconscious mind accepts as true whatever is felt with conviction, whether it be success or failure, wealth or poverty, health or illness. It does not distinguish between what is wanted and what is feared. It brings forth whatever is most deeply felt. And so, before sleep, one must ensure that only the feeling of the wish fulfilled is present. There can be no room for contradiction, no space for uncertainty. The assumption must be absolute, unwavering. To test this is to prove its truth. Let anyone who doubts this law apply it for themselves. Tonight, as sleep approaches, let them abandon all thoughts of worry, all impressions of lack. Let them instead construct within their mind a scene that implies the fulfillment of their deepest desire. Let them enter into it with full conviction, engaging every sense, feeling the reality of their assumption. And then let them drift into sleep, holding fast to this feeling, surrendering with complete faith that the subconscious has received the impression. And they will see in ways beyond their understanding the outer world reshaping itself to reflect the assumption impressed upon the mind. Opportunities will arise where none seemed possible. People will appear. Circumstances will shift. Doors will open, all in perfect alignment with the assumption held before sleep. This is not a theory, nor is it a hopeful wish. It is a law, immutable and unchanging. The subconscious mind does not fail. It does not waver. It brings forth, without exception, that which has been impressed upon it with deep feeling. And the most powerful moment for this impression is in the drowsy state before sleep, when the conscious mind fades and the subconscious stands open, ready to receive. Each night this power is available. Each night the choice is given. One may fall asleep burdened by the past, reinforcing the same reality upon waking, or one may fall asleep as the master of their destiny, impressing upon the subconscious the reality they wish to experience. To understand this is to hold the key to creation, for the world outside is but a mirror, reflecting back that which has been accepted within. And in the stillness of the night, in the quiet moments before sleep, the greatest work of creation is done. The mind, in its infinite capacity, holds within it the power to shape reality, and yet few recognize this truth. They live as though bound by circumstances, believing themselves to be at the mercy of chance, fate, or the will of others. They plead with the universe, hoping for change, yet they continue to think, feel, and assume the same limitations they have always known. And so their world remains unchanged. For the great law is this: that which is most deeply believed, most consistently assumed, must be expressed in form. Every experience, every condition, every event that unfolds in life is but a reflection of the inner state. There is no exception to this. The world outside is merely the shadow cast by the thoughts, beliefs, and assumptions held within. It is not the external that holds power, but the internal. Change does not come from altering circumstances. Circumstances are but the effect. True transformation can only come from within, for the inner world is the cause, and the outer world must follow. Many believe that they must first see evidence before they can believe in their desires. They wait for proof, for signs, for conditions to align before they will accept their wish as possible. But in doing so, they delay its manifestation indefinitely, for they have not yet assumed it to be true. The great secret is this: one does not see and then believe. One believes and then sees. The unseen precedes the seen. The invisible world of thought and feeling is the origin of all that becomes tangible. And so, if one desires a change in their world, they must first change their assumption. They must abandon the notion that they are separate from their desires, that their wish is something to be attained in the future. They must cease asking, cease longing, cease hoping. Instead, they must step into the state of already having. They must claim it now in consciousness and make it real within themselves before it can ever appear in the world outside. The subconscious mind, the great creative power, does not question what is given to it. It does not discern between truth and falsehood, between what is real and what is imagined. It accepts as fact whatever is impressed upon it with feeling and conviction. And from that impression, it brings forth experience in exact accordance with what has been assumed. This is the reason why the practice of assumption is so powerful. It is not enough to wish, to desire, or to hope. One must assume. One must take on the feeling of the wish fulfilled as though it were already so. This is not an act of pretending, nor is it self-deception. It is the deliberate application of a universal law. When one assumes a state with feeling, they align themselves with its reality. They move from longing to possession, from separation to unity. And in doing so, they make it inevitable. For the world must, by law, reflect that which is most deeply held in consciousness. The error most make is to believe that assumption must be based on the evidence of the senses. They look at their present reality, at the conditions surrounding them, and they allow these appearances to dictate what they believe is possible. But to live in this way is to remain bound, for the senses do not create reality. They merely report it. The true act of creation is to assume that which is not yet seen, to claim that which is not yet visible, and to persist in that assumption until it hardens into fact. This is the way all things come into being. Every invention, every discovery, every achievement first existed in the mind of the one who conceived it. It was not seen, yet it was known. It was not evident, yet it was assumed. And from that assumption, it became reality. The same law applies to all who would shape their lives by conscious design. The key is persistence. The assumption must be maintained, unwavering, regardless of what the senses report. There can be no doubt, no questioning, no hesitation. The assumption must be absolute, for only in its certainty does it hold creative power. The great test of faith is to persist in an assumption, even when there is no external proof, to stand firm in the feeling of the wish fulfilled despite appearances to the contrary. This is where most falter. They assume for a moment, then look to the world for confirmation. And when they do not see immediate change, they fall back into doubt, allowing the senses to dictate their belief. But to the one who understands this law, there is no reliance on outer evidence. The only evidence required is the conviction within. For once an assumption is impressed upon the subconscious with feeling and persistence, it must, by law, be externalized. To apply this, one must be deliberate in their thinking. Each night before sleep, they must take hold of the assumption they wish to make real. They must enter into it fully, feeling the reality of their wish as though it were already accomplished. They must allow themselves to become immersed in the scene, experiencing it with all their senses. The mind must dwell in the state of fulfillment, accepting it as fact, and then surrendering to sleep with that impression firmly established. And in time, without effort, without struggle, the world will shift to reflect that assumption. People, events, circumstances will rearrange themselves to bring about that which has been claimed within. There will be no question of how it happened, for the subconscious does not reveal its workings. It simply brings forth that which has been impressed upon it. And those who understand this will come to know that they are not victims of fate, not bound by the past, not subject to chance. They are the operant power, the creators of their experience, the architects of their reality. Each night, before the world fades into sleep, a choice is given. One may assume limitation, struggle, and doubt, and the world will reflect it. Or one may assume success, fulfillment, and certainty, and the world will yield accordingly. It is not a matter of luck, nor is it a question of effort. It is simply a law, operating with absolute precision, and to those who use it wisely, nothing is impossible. The unseen world is the true reality, for all that is visible springs forth from the invisible. The senses deceive, for they show only the reflection of past assumptions, past beliefs, past thoughts that have solidified into form. And yet people continue to live bound by what they see, measuring their possibilities by what is already made manifest. They believe themselves to be powerless because they do not recognize the creative force within them. They do not see that every condition, every experience, every event in their lives is but the result of an assumption once held in mind, now externalized in form. Nothing exists in the external world that did not first exist within. Every invention, every work of art, every towering structure was once a formless thought, an idea held in consciousness, nurtured by belief, and then made tangible. The process is the same for all things. There is no exception. And yet, most do not consciously create. They allow their minds to be dictated by circumstances, by appearances, by what seems to be, never realizing that what seems to be is merely the past projected outward. They continue to affirm their limitations, to dwell upon their fears, to believe in lack and separation, and so they remain bound by the very conditions they wish to escape. There is no power outside of consciousness, no force beyond the mind that determines the course of one's life. The world is but a mirror, faithfully reflecting that which is held within. And the greatest secret is this: the act of assuming, believing, and feeling the reality of a thing before it appears is the only way to bring it into being. It is not effort, nor struggle, nor force that creates change. It is not by fighting against circumstances that one overcomes them. It is by shifting the inner state, by taking on the feeling of already having that which is desired, and allowing the unseen forces to bring it forth into reality. The subconscious mind knows no difference between what is real and what is imagined. It accepts whatever it is given and expresses it with absolute certainty. If one impresses upon it thoughts of failure, it will bring forth failure. If one impresses upon it thoughts of wealth, it will bring forth wealth. It does not question, it does not doubt. It simply creates in the image of that which is most deeply felt and believed. And it is in the moments before sleep that it is most open, most receptive, most impressionable. To impress the subconscious is not to force an idea upon it, but to enter into the state of the wish fulfilled so completely that it feels natural, effortless, inevitable. The feeling is the key. The subconscious responds only to feeling, for feeling is the language of creation. It does not respond to mere words or empty affirmations. It is moved only by that which is deeply felt as true. And so the one who understands this law does not simply repeat words, hoping they will take effect. They embody the state they desire. They dwell in the experience of already having, already being, already possessing. Each night before sleep, one must discard all thoughts of limitation. The worries of the day, the doubts, the fears must be set aside, for they serve no purpose in creation. Instead, the mind must be directed toward the assumption of the wish fulfilled. One must ask, what would it feel like if this were true? What would I see, hear, touch, taste, and smell if my desire were already realized? And then, without effort, without strain, they must allow themselves to dwell in that state, to feel it as though it were already so. The body relaxes, the mind quiets, and the senses withdraw. This is the sacred moment, the gateway between wakefulness and sleep, where the conscious mind fades and the subconscious stands open, ready to receive. It is here that the assumption must be made, not as a distant hope, not as something wished for in the future, but as a present reality. The feeling must be one of certainty, of knowing. There can be no room for doubt, no hesitation, no questioning. The assumption must be final, and then sleep comes. The conscious mind surrenders, and the subconscious takes hold. It does not argue, it does not question, it simply accepts. And as the night passes, it sets in motion all that is necessary to bring forth that which has been impressed upon it. The outer world begins to shift, rearrange, align itself in perfect harmony with the assumption held before sleep. People, events, circumstances, everything moves according to the unseen forces that have been set in motion. This is the great mystery, the law that governs all creation. And yet, it is so simple, so effortless, that many overlook it. They believe that change must come through effort, through struggle, through external force. They do not see that all change begins within, that the outer world is but a reflection of the inner state. They continue to look outside themselves for answers, never realizing that the answer has always been within. To test this is to prove it. Let anyone who doubts apply this tonight. Let them choose one desire, one thing they wish to experience, and let them before sleep enter into the feeling of already having it. Let them surrender all doubt, all questioning, all thoughts of how or when. Let them assume it is already theirs, and then drift into sleep, holding fast to that feeling. And they will see in ways beyond understanding the world reshaping itself to match their assumption. It does not matter what the desire is. There is no difference between a small change and a great one. The same law applies to all things. The only requirement is faith. Faith in the unseen, faith in the power of assumption, faith in the truth that consciousness creates reality. And with that faith, all things become possible. The secret to all creation lies within the unseen realm of assumption. There is no power outside of the self, no force beyond consciousness that dictates the course of one's life. And yet, many remain blind to this truth. They move through life as victims of circumstance, believing that their fate is determined by forces beyond their control. They do not recognize that the conditions of their world are but the outpicturing of their own inner states, the reflections of thoughts and beliefs held persistently in mind. To the unknowing, the world appears as a place of rigid laws, of cause and effect dictated by external conditions. They see events as separate from themselves, believing that things happen to them rather than through them. But to the one who understands, there is no separation between the self and experience. Everything that appears in the world is first conceived in consciousness, and it is only through the act of assumption that anything comes into being. It has never been otherwise. Creation is finished. All possibilities already exist. The entire spectrum of experience, from the highest joy to the deepest despair, is already present, waiting only for selection. Just as a radio contains every station within it, yet plays only the one to which it is tuned, so too does consciousness hold within it every potential reality, yet expresses only that which is assumed. The key is not to force or create something new, but to align oneself with that which is already present, to shift awareness to the desired state as though it were already so. The question then is not whether something is possible, for all things are possible. The question is only whether one will assume it to be true. The great error is in believing that reality is fixed, that circumstances must first change before one can feel differently. But this is to misunderstand the law entirely. The outer world is not cause but effect. It does not shape consciousness. It is shaped by consciousness. And the moment one truly assumes a new state, the outer world begins to shift to reflect it. Every night before sleep, the doorway to the subconscious stands open. This is the sacred moment in which all things are impressed upon the deeper mind. The conscious mind, with its doubts, its worries, its limitations, begins to fade, and in its place the subconscious emerges, ready to receive. And what is received in this moment is not questioned, not argued, not resisted. It is simply accepted as truth. This is the time when assumption becomes reality, when the unseen becomes seen. If one desires health, they must assume the feeling of perfect well-being. If one desires love, they must assume the feeling of being deeply cherished. If one desires success, they must assume the feeling of already having achieved it. It is not enough to wish, to hope, to long for change. These states imply lack, separation, and distance from the desired reality. Assumption is not longing, it is possession. One does not ask for, but claims. Not tomorrow, not in the future, but now. The senses will protest, pointing to a world that contradicts the assumption. The mind will resist, arguing for the limitations of the past. But this is where the test of faith begins. The one who truly understands this law does not rely on appearances. They do not look to the outer world for confirmation, for they know that the world is always a step behind, always following the assumptions held within. The only thing that must change is the state of being, and once that has shifted, the world has no choice but to follow. To assume is to live in the end. It is to feel with absolute certainty that what is desired is already present. The feeling is the key, for the subconscious mind does not respond to words alone. It is not moved by mere statements or affirmations that lack conviction. It responds only to the deep, unquestioned feeling of already being, already having, already experiencing. And once that feeling has taken root, the law is set in motion. The world will bend, unseen forces will align, and what was once invisible will become visible. Those who have tested this law know that it requires no effort, no struggle. It is not about forcing change, but about becoming change. It is not about working harder, but about shifting into the state where the work is already done. The battle is not in the world, but in the mind. And once the inner victory is won, the outer victory is inevitable. The only requirement is persistence. For just as a seed does not sprout the moment it is planted, so too does an assumption require time to take form. The greatest mistake is to assume briefly, then look to the world for evidence, and, finding none, fall back into doubt. This is the wavering mind, the unstable heart, which moves from faith to fear, from belief to disbelief, never allowing the assumption to take root. But the one who truly knows the law does not waver. They assume their desire is already fulfilled, and they hold to that assumption with unwavering certainty, regardless of what the senses report. Each night, before sleep, the opportunity is given. One may carry into sleep the worries of the day, the thoughts of limitation and failure, and so awaken to a world unchanged. Or one may carry into sleep the feeling of fulfillment, the deep conviction that all is already as they wish it to be. And if they persist in this, if they truly live in the assumption, they will awaken to a world transformed. For consciousness is the only reality, and that which is most deeply assumed must by law be made manifest. There is nothing in this world that was not first imagined. Every great achievement, every work of art, every advancement in science, every towering structure that stands today was once only an idea, a vision in the mind of its creator. But the world does not recognize this. It sees only what is already made manifest and calls it real, while dismissing the unseen as fantasy. And so, people continue to be bound by appearances, believing in limitations, accepting circumstances as unchangeable, never realizing that they themselves are the architects of their reality. The greatest truth is this: imagination is the only reality. It is not a passive faculty, a place of idle dreams. It is the creative power of the universe itself, flowing through the individual. And yet most fail to use it consciously. They allow it to be shaped by external conditions, by past experiences, by fears and doubts. They imagine failure and so they fail. They imagine struggle and so they struggle. They do not see that the very act of imagining is the act of creating. Every night, before sleep, the mind enters a state of receptivity. The body relaxes, the senses withdraw, and the conscious mind begins to fade. This is the most powerful moment in the creative process, for it is here that the subconscious stands open, ready to accept whatever is impressed upon it. And what is impressed in this state is not questioned, not doubted, but accepted as truth. It is in this sacred moment that one has the power to reshape their world. The world calls it dreaming, but those who understand the law know that it is far more than that. It is the gateway to creation, the place where all things begin. For in this state, the line between what is real and what is imagined dissolves, and the subconscious takes hold of whatever is felt as true. This is why it is of the utmost importance to be mindful of what one carries into sleep. To drift off in thoughts of fear, of lack, of failure, is to impress these conditions upon the subconscious, ensuring their continued presence in waking life. But to fall asleep in the assumption of the wish fulfilled, to dwell in the feeling of already having that which is desired, is to plant the seed of its manifestation. It is not enough to repeat words, to say affirmations without conviction. The subconscious does not respond to empty phrases. It responds only to feeling. It is the deep, unquestioned feeling of already being, already having, already experiencing that which is desired that takes root and expresses itself in form. This is why imagination must be used deliberately, not as an idle escape, but as the means of creation. One must ask before sleep, what would it feel like if my desire were already fulfilled? What would I see, hear, touch, taste, and smell if it were true? And then without effort, without strain, allow the mind to enter into that experience fully, to see the world as it would be, to hear the voices of those who would congratulate you, to feel the reality of the state as though it were already so. The body may lie in bed, but the mind must move, must enter into the scene of the fulfilled desire, and remain there until sleep takes over. This is not daydreaming, not mere wishful thinking. It is the deliberate act of creation. For the subconscious does not differentiate between what is real and what is imagined. It only knows what is felt as true. And if a thing is felt as true, then by law it must be made manifest. The process is effortless, for it is not done by force but by surrender. One does not try to create, one simply assumes the state and allows it to be. The outer world is always a reflection of the inner state. To change the world, one must first change within. And there is no greater tool for transformation than the imagination. Every night before sleep, the opportunity is given. One may carry into sleep the worries of the day, the fears and doubts that keep them bound, and so awaken to the same conditions. Or one may enter into the feeling of the wish fulfilled, knowing that what is assumed in imagination must, by law, be expressed in reality. To those who doubt, the challenge is simple. Test it. Do not take the word of another, but prove it for yourself. Choose one thing, one desire, and each night before sleep assume its fulfillment. Feel it, live in it, make it real in the mind, and then let go. And if done with faith, with conviction, then soon the world will begin to shift. Circumstances will move, events will unfold, and what was once only imagined will become reality. For imagination is not fantasy, it is the blueprint of all creation. And the one who understands this, who uses it wisely, who shapes it with intention and enters into the state of their fulfilled desire before sleep, holds in their hands the key to all things. There is no greater illusion than time. The world has conditioned man to believe that between desire and fulfillment there must exist a gap, a waiting period, a process of external change. This belief in time as a necessary factor in creation is the greatest limitation one can place upon themselves. For in truth there is no delay, no waiting, no preparation required. The only thing that stands between the individual and the realization of their desire is their own unwillingness to assume that it is already so. The mind, conditioned by years of external influence, insists on logic, on cause and effect, on gradual progress. It resists the idea that assumption alone is sufficient to bring forth reality. And so people continue to wait, to hope, to prepare, never realizing that the moment they truly accept the reality of their desire, it is already theirs. The outer world is not separate from the inner world. It is not a realm of independent events, but a reflection of consciousness. Change does not happen outside of the self. It happens within. And once that change is made, the world has no choice but to conform. To assume a thing is to make it real, not tomorrow, not in some distant future, but now. This is the law. That which is felt as true in consciousness must be made manifest. The world is nothing more than a mirror, reflecting faithfully the inner state of being. And yet, instead of changing within, people fight the reflection, struggling against conditions, attempting to force change through effort and action, never realizing that they are working against themselves. The only action that matters is the action of assumption. The only labor required is the labor of belief. One must abandon the idea that time must pass before a thing can come to be. The moment a desire is accepted as a present fact, it is already set in motion. The senses may deny it, the outer world may seem unchanged, but this is irrelevant. The seed has been planted, and what is planted must grow. The mistake is in looking to the world for confirmation, in seeking evidence before belief. But this is to misunderstand the law entirely. The world is always a step behind consciousness. It does not create, it only reflects. Every night before sleep, the opportunity is given to step beyond time, to enter into the reality of the wish fulfilled. In this drowsy state, the conscious mind relaxes. The critical faculties fade and the subconscious is open to receive. This is the moment of true creation, where all things are possible. Here one does not wish for, but live in. One does not hope, but assume. The feeling of already being, already having, already experiencing is impressed upon the subconscious. And what is impressed must be expressed. It does not matter what the senses say. It does not matter what reason dictates. The law is indifferent to circumstances, for circumstances are only shadows, lingering echoes of past assumption. They hold no power. What matters is only the present state of being. The world will move in ways unseen. Events will unfold in perfect order. But all of this is secondary. The true work is done within. And the one who knows this does not wait, does not question, does not doubt. They assume, and in that assumption they know it is already done. To those who would test this, let them do so with complete conviction. Let them, each night before sleep, enter into the feeling of already having what they desire. Let them walk in that reality, speak from that state, feel the certainty of its truth. And then let them release it, knowing that the seed is planted, that the law is in motion. The test is simple: assume and persist. And soon the outer world must yield, for there is no waiting, no distance, no delay. That which is assumed with feeling is already so. And once this is understood, once it is lived and applied, there is no limit to what may be achieved. The truth has always been simple, yet the mind, conditioned by years of limitation, seeks to complicate it. The world would have you believe that external forces govern your destiny, that circumstances dictate what is possible, that you must strive, struggle, and wait for the fulfillment of your desires. But the one who understands the law knows otherwise. Everything begins and ends within consciousness. The outer world is nothing more than a shadow of the inner state. To change one's reality, one must change their assumption. Every night, before sleep, the opportunity is given to step beyond limitation, to enter into the state of the wish fulfilled. In this drowsy state, the conscious mind weakens and the subconscious, the true creator of experience, becomes receptive. Here, in this sacred moment, one has the power to impress upon the unseen that which must be made seen. It is not a question of time, nor effort, nor struggle. It is only a question of belief. The feeling of already being, already having, already experiencing the desired reality is the key that unlocks all doors. Doubt not, question not, For the law is infallible. What is assumed with conviction, what is persistently felt as true, must become reality. The world will move, circumstances will shift, paths will unfold, but all of this is merely the reflection of the inner work. There is nothing to do but assume and persist. Test it for yourself. Choose one desire, and each night before sleep, assume its fulfillment. Walk in that state. Feel the reality of it, and let sleep take you, while dwelling in the feeling of already having received. And then let go. Resist the urge to seek evidence, to question, to waver. The seed is planted, and the law is in motion. Soon, in ways beyond comprehension, the outer world will shape itself to match the inner assumption. For imagination is not fantasy, it is the blueprint of creation. And the one who dares to assume, who dares to believe beyond the evidence of the senses, will hold in their hands the key to all things.